It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're in Sacramento today, and we are joined by Ben Allen. He is a member of the California State Senate, a new member. Congratulations, sir. A tremendous victory.
Thank you,
you're actually covering the west side of Los Angeles all the way down to the South Bay. How is that? I mean, that's a long district to cover.
It's an enormous district, but incredible district. Great people, great communities, nearly 1 million people, quite a bit larger than a congressional district. But it's just fantastic. We've got Hollywood, Beverly Hills, the Palos Verdes Peninsula, the airport, UCLA, Catalina Island. It's a wonderful mix of communities.
So tell us about serving in the Senate. You had been a law professor, you'd been a lawyer, you were on a school board, Santa Monica, Malibu, but I gotta think the California State Senate a little different from those entities.
It is.
A little bit.
It is.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit different. Part of it's just the change of lifestyle. You have to live in two cities, go back and forth every week between LA and Sacramento. But the issues are just so fascinating. It's an exciting opportunity. There's a lot of really good things happening in the state. The budget's starting to finally get looking a little bit better. And
so let's talk about some of those exciting issues, because you were honored by being named chair of the Election and Constitutional Amendments Committee, appropriate for a law professor to take that position. And I know one of the issues you've been looking at is voter turnout.
Yep.
You represent Los Angeles County, whose voter turnout was abysmal.
Absolutely.
In your election.
Right.
I mean, it was obviously not just your election, but it was a large election. But 8 constitutional officers running, and yet in LA County, 31% voter turnout.
That's right. Which was 11% lower than the state voter turnout. Statewide was 42%, which was still low.
Not good.
LA County, dead last in the state. 31% voter turnout.
What does that say to you? What is going on in Los Angeles County that people are simply not going to the polls when vote by mail is very easy in Los Angeles and in California?
Well, it's interesting. It is easy, though our county is quite a bit further behind the other counties in rolling out vote by mail.
Okay.
So just to give you an example, that very same day with the exact same ballot, Sierra County, up in the mountains, had a 73% voter turnout. Now they're all vote by mail. Now our county, there's just a big piece about this in the paper. Our county is just way behind the others in terms of encouraging people to vote by mail. So we're actually going to hold a hearing on this issue and bring the registrar recorder in and just talk about how LA really needs to get up to speed with the rest of the state with regards to vote by mail. It's not hard to sign up, but we need to do more to encourage people and make it more available.
Should we become an all vote by mail county or state for that matter? I mean, I think Oregon is all vote by mail, at least for some elections.
Maybe eventually. I'm not ready for us to go there yet. There are certainly some concerns in the disability community and some of the language minority communities that are concerned about what that might involve. But that may be something we want to move toward eventually.
I'm sure you heard that there was an idea floated in the city of Los Angeles. There's such desperation on this issue that the chair of the LA City Ethics Commission, Nathan Hochman, a lawyer, he proposed that the city at least investigate, research an idea known as lotteria. And basically what that would mean is anyone who votes would have their name put in a lottery and the city would award a winner. Maybe $25,000, $50,000. And it is legal in California. It couldn't be during a federal election, but it's a possibility. What do you think? Crazy or?
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the Real Loteria, which is a wonderful taco restaurant.
I know
in
it.
Hollywood and in Farmers Market.
It's very tasty.
Both of my districts. Great tacos. Gourmet tacos.
I've been there. I love it.
So interesting idea. I love the fact that people are trying to think about creative ways to try to boost voter turnout. Maybe something we ought to look at. I know that there's been real opposition amongst members of the LA City Council.
LA Times hated it.
LA Times hated it. So let's see what happens in LA. I think one of the great things about our system is that we have lots of, just like the states are laboratories for American democracy, our cities are laboratories for California democracy. Let's see where that goes in LA.
To me, though, sir, it speaks to the absolute frustration, exasperation on this issue. It was really in the wake, not so much of the November election, but the mayoral election, which had 2 very strong candidates, Eric Garcetti, Wendy Gruhl. This is LA City Mayor. They both raised a lot of money, a lot of big name support, and yet the voter turnout for that election was abhorrent.
Well, I'd like to see us do more to try to consolidate elections a bit more too. I think that we could do more to encourage that. I think that's exactly what they're looking at LA City as well.
And let me ask you about the number of elections. So I happen to live outside of Century City, kind of in between Century City, Culver City. You know that area
Yeah, of course,
well.
yeah.
So over the last year, I had special elections for the state senator went to the LA City Council, so for state senate, the one who won the state senate wound up going, was an assembly member, so an assembly seat. Then there was an LA City Council seat, and I had a school board seat. I mean, literally, I was voting, it seemed like every 2 months.
Right.
And I'm a vote by voter mail, I vote by mail, so it wasn't so dramatic.
Easy. Right.
But I mean, come on.
I know.
It was insane.
But the fact that you were able to easily do it because you got that you got that ballot right in the mail, you sent it off, it's easy to do, that really helps. I think you're right. We got to consolidate more of the elections. But it does get me back to this whole question of vote by mail and this difference between our county and the rest of the state.
But let me ask you.
Because they've got a lot of different elections too.
Is it time, and I ask you as chair of elections, that we consider whether the governor should be able to appoint when there's a vacancy in this assembly or the Senate? I mean, for many counties, he does for supervisor.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I really do. And they do that in San Francisco, where they just appointed the mayor just appointed a supervisor to replace a supervisor who got elected to the assembly. So I think that's a really I think it's a good idea.
Now, here's a crazy idea, although it's not that crazy, and you know this, Professor. There are some jurisdictions, Australia, I know Belgium as well, where voting is mandatory. Mandatory. You have to vote.
Yeah.
What do you think, Counselor?
So we had a couple Australian legislators here talking to us about the drought, all the ways that they've been addressing the drought in Australia. Very innovative stuff. But we started talking about this issue of mandatory voting, and they just glowed about it. And these were people from across the political spectrum. They said that it really does force the politicians to be much more accountable, much more responsive, much more engaged. It doesn't stop anybody from going and casting a blank ballot if they want.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it doesn't force you to choose. You just have to go and cast a ballot. And they make it very easy, and there's different ways of doing it. So, is
it anti-American?
I don't think so. Why is it anti-American?
I ask. I don't advocate.
What makes you say that? Why would you say that?
I mean, there's something to be said for your voting by not voting.
Okay, but you don't have to actually.
I hear you.
Cast a blank ballot.
Yeah. You think that your friends on the other side of the aisle would support something like this?
We'll have to see if someone decides to really make a push on this.
Okay, so as we said, you've joined the state Senate. What are your hopes, your dreams, your goals for the next year?
Oh, well. First of all, there's a couple long-term things that I like to work on that mean a lot to my district. So first of all, transit funding. LA is just suffering under the yoke of congestion, overcrowding, and just not enough ways of getting around town. We've really got to do whatever we can at the state level to try to jumpstart funding and jumpstart those projects that are going to help make people move again.
Should we be looking at whether high-speed rail funding should be spent as opposed to shifting maybe that money to more localized projects?
Yeah, I think that the governor's obviously prioritizing high-speed rail. I've been getting my head around some of the cost increases.
New. Yeah,
I've always been very conceptually supportive of the idea of high-speed rail. I think it's worked really well in other countries, China and Japan and
Taiwan,
France, elsewhere.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just was reading a piece by some of the train writers, advocates, who were talking about an alternative proposal that was much less expensive, but that also maintained the promise of high-speed rail.
It seems like we're going forward on this. I mean, the governor was in Fresno, and he wants that. Yeah, he wants that train, and there's a revenue stream as a result of cap and trade.
Right.
So what else? Any other ideas as you enter?
Parks, open space preservation in our area. I've got a couple different proposals that relate to strengthening some of the powers of local school boards.
It must be hard representing the coast of California. It must be really tough. You're one of the most beautiful districts in our great state.
It's beautiful, but we got to preserve and protect it. And there's a lot of people fighting to, we got to do whatever we can to make sure we maintain that.
He is Ben Allen. He's a member of the California State Senate. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.